Disengagement doesn't discriminate. I get asked all the time, is this just a jaded old person's kind of thing? Or is this, millennials who just, are dissatisfied with a lot of stuff that's going on and are constantly pushing for change? It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, black or white, on the East Coast, on the West Coast, if you're a manager, a secretary, or a CEO. And this really came home to me in a really big way. A couple of years ago, I have a client in Salt Lake City that I go out there a lot. And from the Bay Area to get to Salt Lake City, if you're not on Southwest, you're usually on one of these smaller planes, kind of the 2 and 2, right, where everybody's crunched in like sardines. And I always sit in the aisle. So I'm in my aisle seat, just kind of doing my thing, and the guy comes up to get into the window seat next to me. Guy about maybe early 30s. And when he went to put his bag, he had a small bag up in the overhead, the computer he was holding in his arms slipped and hit me in the head. No blood, it's okay. But it was kind of like, ooh. So he sat down, and of course he felt just horrible. And he opens his computer to do some work, and he's starting to talk with me. And he opens the screen, and the first thing I see is the logo from my former company. I thought, okay, you hit me in the head, now this. And so we started chatting, and I said, do you work for them? And he said, no, I'm actually in the advertising business. I make videos for corporations. They're one of my clients. He said, do you work for them? And I said, well, I used to. And he said, what do you do now? And I said, well, I'm actually in the process of writing a book. I'm interviewing people who are disengaged in the workplace. And he says to me, you need to interview me because I'm really disengaged. So he gave me his card. We chatted a few more minutes. He went back to work, and I went back to reading my Us magazine. Thank you. Because, hey, that's good, right? That's what I do because I'm not in a full-time job anymore. So about 10 minutes go by, and I get a tap on my right shoulder. And I look over, and it's the woman sitting in the aisle across from me. She whispers to me, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I'm going through the same thing, and I'm actually relocating from Salt Lake City to San Francisco to take a new job with my company so that I can hopefully kind of get out of this funk. Now, this was an African-American woman, probably in her mid-40s. So I looked at her and I said, well, what do you do? Who do you work for? And she went like this. Shh. And she pointed to the lapel pin on her shirt. It was the airline we were flying on. I'm like, okay, here's my card, right? So I go back to my Us magazine. We get off and get to Salt Lake City, and this was one of those planes where if you had a carry-on that was a decent size, you had to get it on the jetway. So I'm lined up on the jetway, and this striking woman comes up to me, looked to be about in her early 60s, and she said, I didn't want to eavesdrop either, but I was sitting right behind you, and I just took early retirement because I had lost the passion for what I do. Turned out she lived a block from me. We had coffee, had a chance to talk, and I kept thinking to myself, what if I got on the loudspeaker? How many people would raise their hand? So I just think that's a microcosm